Let's talk some issues as we enter the holiday season here. By the way, we had an event here in Greenville last night with the new Speaker designate of the House of Representatives, Tim Moore. It is, without question, he will become the Speaker of the House on January the 14th, I guess. Or maybe, I don't know when they vote. The session opens on January the 14th.
Right.
I had a great chat with him last night. He was here last night, just had an open house with Representative Brian Brown. Had a great chat with him last night, and he seems optimistic that the House and the Senate will cooperate with the governor moving forward. But we sure haven't seen that up till now, and I'm wondering, is it just preseason optimism? because
did you ask him if he still believes in the tooth fairy?
Tom Tillis is gone, and I believe that Tim Moore has some big shoes to fill. What are your thoughts about all that?
No question about that. He does, and he's facing some big challenges, some big fights within the Republican Party. It's an interesting situation that Republicans are busy fighting amongst themselves instead of fighting Democrats or whatever. But I think there's going to be some real issues between the House and the Senate. I think Phil Berger is arguably the most powerful politician in North Carolina right now, and so I think he is going to try to flex those muscles, particularly since he's got a new team over in the House. The governor and Tom Tillis kind of teamed up together last year and pretty much had their way with the Senate and Phil Berger, and they didn't like it too well. I think you're going to see some efforts for Berger to dominate a little bit more during this coming session, but Tim's got his hands full with that. He's got some new leadership that's going to be taking place within his caucus. It's going to be an interesting time for people who enjoy watching politics this year.
Yeah, the other interesting dynamic as we enter the whole session in January is going to be the fact that the Governor McCrory, is actually suing the legislature. He's suing the leadership, and along with Governor Jim Martin and Governor Jim Hunt, two former governors who agree with Pat McCrory that this legislature has usurped some of the governor's powers with regard to his ability to appoint people, all stemming from the big Duke Cole Ash thing. And I hear people say, "Wow, politically, that's not very smart for McCrory to do that." And then I tell you, the people on the inside, and I'm not talking about people just around, right around McCrory, but people in government in Raleigh say, you know what, the governor did the right thing because he's got to put a stop to that, and he's going to win that lawsuit.
I'm not sure he's going to win it, but going back to your first point, people don't tend to get real happy when you sue them.
Yeah.
And I think under the circumstances, that's certainly not going to make great friends with the Senate particularly. But under the circumstances, I also have to say I think the governor was morally right. I'm not sure whether he's legally correct in his position or not. We've got the weakest governor of all the 50 governors in the United States, and it was designed that way by our framers of the Constitution, who were tired of the dictates coming out of England. So we designed a government to make sure there wasn't going to be a monarchy or some central power, some individual who was the prime powerful force. However, over the past decade or so, we've seen an encroachment of even those powers, the administrative powers, by the legislature, which is truly more powerful than any of the other branches of state government. And so I think under the circumstances, the governor is morally right in saying, hey, wait a minute, you're asking me to administer these boards and commissions that you created, and yet I have no input whatsoever in naming these people or have no control whatsoever over these boards. And so under the circumstances, this is wrong. And it started with the legislature obviously determining that it was going to name all 32 members of the Board of Governors. And then over a period of years, We've seen, we'll name one, the House will name one, the Senate will name one, the governor will name one, that kind of sharing. But McCrory says enough is enough, and I think he's right about that. I'm not sure I think he's going to prevail in court.
Well, and, with regard to the Board of Governors, the governor still has no appointments.
None.
But he can appoint boards of trustees, a few boards of trustees members.
Yes.
Which takes place. Now, let's get to topic A with regard to the governor. He is very upset right now because
I was wondering when you were going to get to this.
the Associated Press has done a story that says that that both Pat McCrory and Mark Sanford, who, of course, is the former governor of South Carolina. Now I believe he's a congressman in South Carolina, isn't he?
Yes.
That they were both on the board of Lending Tree. I believe Lending Incorporated is the name of the corporation, but people know the name of the company is really lendingtree.com. And I remember when McCrory got on that board after he lost the 2008 election, he became a member of the board of lendingtree.com, big national company. And of course, these board members get paid to be on these boards. Now, you can argue whether they really do any work or not, or whether they're just there for window dressing and political gain. But I don't know the answer to that. The president of the CEO of Lending Tree has come out in the last 48 hours and said, Governor Pat McCrory was a big part of our board. He earned all the money that he was given during that time because of the way that he helped us manage the company. And so, I mean, you can say, well, that's probably not true, or it is true, or whatever. But the reality of it is, when the governor got elected, he resigned from that board and took an early payout on the stock that was owed him by virtue of the agreement of being on the board, and it turned out being a check. Now, the Associated Press is saying that this was unethical, that he didn't report it accurately in his ethics statement, and that this whole thing it doesn't pass the smell test. The governor's melting down, saying this is not the first time the Associated Press has come after me. Through the whole Duke coal ash spill, they misreported and omitted many things and made up things that were never true about me. Is the governor being too sensitive here?
Yes. But is the Associated Press being a little biased and the story much ado about nothing? Yes. I mean, look, here, okay, let's go back to the beginning. Why do people appoint people to boards? You're on boards. Why do people put you on boards?
By the way, we get paid nothing on the boards I'm on.
Well, and some would say you're overpaid.
There's a big difference in being on a corporate board where the board members get paid and being on a state-appointed board where it costs you money to serve the people and the taxpayers.
Some would say members of the Board of Governors are overpaid.
I would probably agree in some cases.
I hear you. Here's the thing. When you put somebody on a board, you want to use their wealth, their work, or their influence. It's as simple as that. So a corporate board is counting on being able to take advantage of those one or more of those three things. So I don't fault Lending Tree for wanting to have a former Charlotte mayor, a former candidate for governor of North Carolina on their board. I don't fault McCrory for wanting to get on their board. It's money, it's revenue, it's prestige to say that you're on a corporate board. Is there a quid pro quo? Do the corporations get their money's worth? Obviously, they must feel like they do because they keep paying people to be on their boards. I don't think McCrory did anything unethical. By the way, this business about appointing the banking commissioner and undue influence, that's a bunch of hooey. The truth of the matter is, I don't think McCrory did anything wrong here, by the way. He just reappointed the commissioner that Bev Perdue had already appointed before.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about this story. They're trying to connect the dots that somehow the banking commissioner appointment is part of a big scandal. I mean, it's really, really shoddy reporting by the AP.
Well, here's the deal. As you know, I was Harlan Boyle's assistant treasurer, and so he was chairman of the state banking commission, and I watched what the banking commission does, and I'm not even sure the banking commission has that much authority over LendingTree.com and what it does and how it does it. So the whole business of influence there, I think, is highly questionable. I think Biesecker and the Associated Press was just nosing around trying to dig up some controversy, and they did. Now, here's the thing about it. The governor has, as we both know and know him, has very thin skin. He doesn't like criticism. Well, who does? But you got to know that, as Harry Truman said, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. He is in a position where he's going to get criticized. I think the governor's proper response to all of that was, look, I didn't do anything wrong. This isn't a story. Thank you very much. That's all I'm going to say about this. But instead, he issues a 34-page rebuttal. Give me a break. The story continues to live. If I'm in his communications office, I'm going to say, Pat, shut up and take it.
You know, let me play devil's advocate with you for a second, because you know the governor and our friends, and nothing you have said is something I can disagree with. But let's play devil's advocate. You know, we're at the end of 2015. He's been governor for 2 years. Now the campaign begins for re-election in 2016. Roy Cooper is sending emails out, collecting money. He is beginning to not openly campaign. Well, in some cases, maybe he is, but he's beginning to develop a campaign. We have been through what looks to be some shoddy reporting by the News and Observer over time about some of the governor's activities, and certainly the editorializing that has tried to damage him. It would probably be the best way to say it. And now here comes the Associated Press again with information that just doesn't fly if you're looking at it from a positive and solid journalism standpoint. You know, why should the governor take it, Tom? Why doesn't he fight back?
He doesn't have to take it, Henry, but he doesn't have to respond with a 34-page rebuttal either. Well, I mean, come on.
Right.
It's like the 60 Minutes story with Leslie Stahl. That was a bunch of hooey there. You know, he sat there. And by the way, I'm trying to be very careful to use the word
I was going to say,
hooey.
every time you say hooey, Michael reaches for the dump button over there.
I got that.
the 7-second delay.
It's kind of like Bess Truman used to say about Harry Truman. It took her years to get him to say manure. Anyway, the thing with 60 Minutes is another example of being a little thin-skinned. It was a story. The thing that I think that Pat's got to learn is that he makes some of these stories live on by protesting too much about them.
Yeah.
And the reality is he could give away $1,000 bills to every citizen in the state of North Carolina, and the News and Observer wouldn't like it. Even if it came out of his own pocket and he gave away $1,000 to everybody, the News and Observer is not going to like it. Neither
That's right.
is the Charlotte. Neither is a lot of the print media in North Carolina. They're not going to like much of anything that he does. I mean, it's like our mutual friend Chris Fitzsimon and I have had discussions about this as far as his organization, NC Policy Watch. Nothing the Republicans do is going to be satisfactory to these folks. Under the circumstances, then, I think what you got to do is you got to say, okay, this wasn't factually correct. Here's the fact. And that's it. Stop it.
Yeah.
Cut out all of the business about the whining and the complaining and the bias and all of this kind of stuff. He's not helping himself there. Let the story die.
Yeah.
Just let it die.
Yeah, he's not built that way, and it will.
Well, I'm not either. I understand that. When somebody complains about us at NC Spin, it hurts my feelings. I want everybody to like us.
I've tried to get thicker skin. I tell you what. Maybe we should put the governor on the UNC Board of Governors. That'll thicken up your skin.
Well, Brad Crone says that's what he wants to give Pat McCrory for Christmas, thicker skin.
All right, 17 minutes in front of 9 o'clock. Tom Campbell from NC Spin. What are the other big issues as we look to 2015? What do you see? Look into your crystal ball and tell us what you see happening in North Carolina next year.
Well, I think we're going to have a very interesting legislative session. I think there's going to be, first of all, I think you're going to see a lot of political infighting. The Democrats are fighting each other, over leadership. I don't know whether you've been following much about what's been going on inside the Democratic Party or not. Here are a bunch of folks that are just really getting upset because Patsy Keever from Asheville, who is running to be the chairman of the state Democratic Party, they don't like her because her husband's grandfather was related to Charles B. Aycock, a known racist, for God's sake.
Oh, my Lord. And, the ECU trustees are wrangling with that whole Aycock thing today.
Changing Aycock Dorm, his name. I remember when Aycock Dorm was first named. It was one of the new dorms.
1961. I lived in that dorm It was my home.
Yeah.
In 1971. I think the whole timing of this thing has been somewhat
so I think you're going to see a lot of infighting among Democrats next year as they try to revitalize and get the phoenix to rise. I think, on the other hand, the Republicans are going to be fighting with each other next year. I think you're going to have some real discussions about finances and the state budget. I think you're going to see this Medicaid reform issue is nasty, and it's getting uglier. And not only is it difficult to resolve, but the people the fight that took place in the legislature last week between Ralph Heiss, the Senate chair of Health and Human Services, and Nelson Dollar, got really testy. And so I think you're going to see some issues there. And I don't know whether we'll get a Medicaid reform bill passed next year or not. I think you're going to see more issues and more discussion regarding education reform. There will probably be another effort for teacher pay increases, this time with teachers who have longer tenure in the system. But it will be tied to teacher performance, and that's going to raise quite a bit of controversy, because how do you measure the performance of a teacher? So it's going to be I think it's going to be a long and testy legislative session, and as you said, it is the lead up to the 2016 election. So everybody's going to be posturing to try to put themselves in the best position they possibly can. I think Pat McCrory is probably going to face some challenge so far as a primary is concerned.
Do you really? You think somebody's going to primary the governor?
Yes.
Who do you think it'll be?
Jim Kaine, former Republican ambassador, is being courted very heavily. The Tea Party element.
Who by the way, supported McCrory in 2012.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. But the Tea Party is courting him very heavily.
He's help me remember. He's a former ambassador to some foreign country
that nobody can remember very much about, and it wasn't terribly important.
Jim Kaine does not have.
It was like a political appointment to a board.
That's right. Would it not take $10 million for someone who has no name recognition across the state like Jim Kaine to challenge a guy with McCrory's name?
Yeah, it would take that and an ego bigger than Texas.
The thing about it is, if there is a primary for Pat McCrory in 2016, that's really bad news for him, because that means he's got to spend money to win 2 elections.
Exactly, and that's exactly how, by the way, Kay Hagan kept the U.S. Senate race as close as she did.
Yeah.
Somehow or another, she managed to see to it that Tom Tillis had a very hard-fought primary election, so he was using money and resources and time fighting Mark Harris and all of the others instead of going after her.
Hey, Tom, we're almost out of time. I want to get this in while we're talking about the 2016 election. We just finished the Tillis-Hagan race, which was incredibly expensive. People probably haven't thought this through very much yet, but we're about to have another U.S. Senate race in North Carolina.
Burr wins in a landslide.
Because
I'll answer your question.
Richard Burr, well, but against who? My question is, who's going to run against Richard? Who the Democrats have to put up against Richard Burr in 2016?
Does it matter?
You know, the Obama money matters.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think Burr wins in a landslide next year, 2016. He's done a great job with constituent service. He's getting ready to get a very powerful Senate committee chairmanship. He's been a good senator. People typically like him, even Democrats. I don't see that being a contest.
But who's on the horizon? Who do you think will be in the race to try to? Will Kay Hagan come back, you think, and try to run against Richard Burr?
No. I think she understands her 15 minutes of fame are up.
So
by the way, can I get in a plug here?
Yeah.
I've already recorded it, but I did an end-of-the-year interview with Governor McCrory, a half-hour interview. And it was a delightful interview. It's going to air on NC-SPIN on January 4th. I've already recorded it. But I will just tease it a little bit if I can.
Sure.
One of my first questions was to ask him to show me his hands. I wanted to see if he had coal ash on them.
Oh, whoa.